Hey everyone, this video is going to be focused on the different ways that you can migrate content from classic quizzes in Canvas to new quizzes. As I mentioned in other videos, Canvas is going to deprecate the classic quizzes at some point, and when that happens, all content will be migrated to new quizzes. However, I'm not exactly sure in what format or structure all of that is going to take place. And so while it's easy to migrate a quiz, for example, here's a classic quiz that just has 19 questions right on the page. There's no question banks being used, etc. When I click on migrate, this is just going to turn it into a new quiz. Pretty simple, no questions asked. It doesn't replace the old one. It just makes a duplicate of that. And you can tell that it's a new quiz when it's done because it has the filled in icon right here. So new quiz, classic quiz. But that new quiz, as I mentioned, if I click on it and I go to the build, these questions are right on the quiz. A lot of times people want to put their questions into banks that are organized by chapter or unit or type of question, whatever it happens to be. A lot of times I recommend people have a bank of, let's say, 50 questions that they're going to randomly pull 20 in different parts of an exam for students. That way they can reuse questions, they can make practice tests, they can do all of those things. And then when it comes to a final exam, they might say like, oh, I've got all of these item banks that have questions that I've already used. I'm going to pick 5 from each of them, whether it's handpicked or just randomly picked to use for the final exam. It makes it a lot easier. So rather than having the questions on like this, if you do have a question or you do have a new quiz like this, when you're in the build section and editing question, you could go to each one and add these questions to a bank. It would be tedious and time consuming, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. Instead, what I would recommend is that go back to your quizzes and let's take this test quiz 1. We're going to edit it. We're going to go into the questions, and I'm going to take all of these questions and put them into a new question group. And I am just going to call this item bank test quiz 1. So I'm going to create that group. It doesn't matter how many questions it's picking because I'm just going to take all of these questions and I'm going to put them in this group. And notice I'm not really paying attention to what order I'm in because if you're using item groups, you can manually make quizzes with manually pick questions and put them in the order you want. But anytime you're telling it to automatically pick 5 questions, 2 points each, whatever it happens to be, it is going to rearrange those anyway. So you can't really control the order. So I have all of these in one question group, and I am going to save that quiz. Now, I made a point about what I was naming it so you could see what happens when I go back to quizzes now. So rather than doing each individual question, I now have this test quiz 1. It looks like it only has one question because they're all in a group and it just said pick one. But when I migrate this quiz now, it's not only going to migrate the quiz, but it's also going to take the question bank that's attached to that quiz and migrate it into that. Now, this isn't the same as if I had an actual question bank of questions. I have not gone into how to download an old question bank from there. And part of that is because I haven't found a way to do that in the first place. But I'll show that a little bit later in the video. But here is the test quiz 1 now. And when I go into the build section on this, you're going to notice that it has one group of questions that are being pulled from test quiz 1, item bank test quiz 1. It took the name I gave the group and the name of the quiz, and it put it together in order to create a question group. I can see that now in my item banks. The item banks that are shared with this course, there is a test quiz 1, item bank test quiz 1. So it's important to know that it's kind of automating the naming process. Once you have it, you can come in here and say like, oh, this is really item bank or chapters 7 through 12. Now, I always recommend when you're doing this, put a lot more information than just that. I would put in like, oh, this is EDU 402, 2026, chapter 7 to 12, so that I have an idea like, oh, this is when I created it. This is the course that it's for. The reason I say that is it can get pretty messy. Now, I have a lot of banks that are shared with me because I have access to all of the banks in Canvas, but you can see there's a lot of these that it's like, well, there's a lot of names on here that are, it's like, okay, that's good. It's got a unique name, but look at how many, 8.1 quiz, etc. Like a lot of people are doing it. They're putting the names of the courses on there, which is great. Helps you find it, helps me find the ones that I'm looking for later. But I have made a lot of sample ones that's just like, here's a 14-point essay. I don't know what course it is. I don't know where it belongs. If it were mine, I would sometimes forget, like, what did I create this for? So name them or rename them when you're done. Now, one of the other options you do have, and I'm going to show it by going to the settings on here. If I go to the export course content and select quiz, you're going to notice that I have two quizzes. These are the two classic quizzes. I can't do this with new quizzes yet, but I've got two quizzes here, quiz 1 and quiz 2. One of them has 19 questions. The other one has, I think, 11 or 20. I don't know how many questions are in each, but there's two quizzes here. You can create an export, and then you'll see here was a QTI export. I was practicing this before. Here's my new export. I'm going to click on it and then save it. So I'm going to create a new bank. I test upload, share it with the course. Go back to the course, click on test upload, import content, and here comes the quiz content from the quiz export. All right, so that looked good. It has the questions there. If I click on the item banks, test quiz 1, it still remembered the name of that, so I should rename that if I want to. It took the questions from quiz 1. There were 19 questions, I believe. I have not found any way to migrate a question bank to an item bank directly. The only way I know how is either to put all of the questions in a group inside of a classic quiz, migrate it, and then pay attention to the name of the question bank and rename it the way that you want, or to export a classic quiz, one at a time, go into the item banks in new quizzes, and then create the item bank, import it. Remember, it's going to change the name as well. Keep in mind, and I show this in the other video, that the most common mistake that people make is trying to create an item bank by going to the importing existing content that is on the home page and looking for something like, oh, here's a QTI file. Like, that's what I have. That is going to create the quiz. It doesn't create the item banks. So even when you select, an item bank here and say like, oh, add it to it, I've never gotten that to work. There maybe is a trick, but it's always just created a quiz, no item bank. So hopefully that helps you. I'm planning on putting together another video after this that talks about permissions for quizzes and sharing banks with other users and other courses.